What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with some more news. Join us now as we look at the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know, including Roman Reigns says the WWE needed him back, John Cena returning to WWE, Joey Ryan sues his Speaking Out accusers, Roman Reigns' Mount Rushmore, a Hell in a Cell main event has been leaked, and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Now let's hit the intro and get straight into the first story. Now our first story looks at Roman Reigns saying, "I returned to the WWE because they needed me." A current Universal Champion Roman Reigns is a changed man, having established himself as SmackDown's tribal chief and beating down anyone who dares to challenge his authority. However, what led to Reigns returning to the WWE at SummerSlam after he quarantined himself before WrestleMania? Turns out the tribal chief feels the WWE couldn't function without him. During an appearance on Corey Graves' After the Bell podcast, Reigns explained, "The fans wouldn't be calling for me to come back. The company wouldn't need me. If it was really all good, I might still be at home. I think there are some people showing some glimmers, but the people who are doing good now, they were doing good before I left. Bray Wyatt, Seth Rollins, Drew has stepped up. I can imagine this being my opening title run, having to do this during a pandemic. A lot of respect to Drew." Roman noted that Randy Orton seems motivated to work now, something that isn't always the case, and that Keith Lee has potential. Still, Reigns doesn't think he can leave yet, and noted, "When they are doing their job is when I don't have to do mine anymore. John said the same thing to me in one of his promos, and we haven't seen him in a while. In order for me to leave, someone has to come and hold it down and show they can maintain and handle the responsibility. As long as I'm needed, I'm gonna be here. We have guys who can be there, they just haven't gotten there. I'll help as much as possible, but I'm not gonna give it to you." Is this a work shoot or Reigns' true opinion? While it's likely there's some truth in Reigns' comments, the crux is that he is the WWE's leader and he's holding up the company, a clever way to continue his build as an arrogant heel. Expect to see similar comments on social media and in other interviews as well. Roman Reigns has never looked or worked better, and his heel turn could be a turning point not only in his career, but in the WWE, or at least SmackDown turning itself around. Next up, Joey Ryan is suing his Speaking Out accusers. The Speaking Out movement has led to a number of allegations against individuals in the wrestling industry, ranging from harassment to criminal behavior. One name that came up was that of wrestler Joey Ryan, who found his contract with Impact Wrestling terminated after the claims. Now he's firing back at his accusers by taking legal action. In an exclusive report, Heel by Nature revealed, Joey Ryan has filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against 3 women who have made serious allegations against him during the Speaking Out movement. Ryan filed a lawsuit in the United States District and Central Court on 24th September, claiming the women made false allegations against him, resulting in damages to his reputations and his livelihood. Since the allegations went public, Ryan has said he's lost upwards of $20,000 in monthly income from his various revenue sources, including live event bookings, merchandise, Twitch, Cameo, and Patreon. This trial will be extremely important as Ryan's accusers can be found not guilty if they prove the allegations they made are true. Ryan could find himself in legal trouble should the accusations be proven in court. Next up, John Cena talks his return to WWE. John Cena has been largely absent from the WWE, with his last match being at WrestleMania 36, losing to The Fiend in their Firefly Funhouse match. Even before then, Cena's WWE appearances have been rare, as he's worked on a number of films and is currently set to star in the HBO Max series Peacemaker. Does this mean Cena's WWE career is over though? Well, he talked about this during an appearance on The Tonight Show, telling host Jimmy Fallon, "I have a very young audience in WWE, a lot of kids and families, and as my in-ring career with WWE is not active, although not over, I wanted to continue to send messaging to those younger viewers." Like The Rock, Cena's window of opportunity for working in the WWE will depend on when his shooting schedule permits it. It's unlikely any film studio would allow him to risk getting injured during a film shoot, so he would have to wrestle in between filming movies. But when he does come back to the WWE, who should he go into a feud with? Should it be the big dog Roman Reigns? Let us know in the comments down below. Well, whilst we're on the subject of Roman Reigns, he spoke on his version of Mount Rushmore. Now, Roman Reigns is in high demand as seen by his many media appearances, one of which saw him share his Mount Rushmore of wrestling. The current Universal Champion was on the Loaded Management podcast when he disclosed his 4 picks, naming The Undertaker, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Hulk Hogan as the 4 superstars he would epitomize the best of the best. He did mention he was on the fence between Hulk Hogan and John Cena, but did he make the right choice? Let us know in the comments down below whether you agree on this, and tell us your picks for the 4 wrestlers that should be on wrestling's Mount Rushmore. Next up, Mick Foley wants this wrestler in the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, the WWE Hall of Fame is a controversial subject for wrestling fans as they sometimes question certain wrestlers' inclusion into the hall and other wrestlers' exclusion. Wrestlers are no different, so it's no surprise that Mick Foley is lobbying for his former rival Vader to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Foley and Vader had a brutal feud during their time in WCW, and recently Vader's son tweeted about Foley and his dad. Pops absolutely loved working with Mick Foley, and their Halloween Havoc match was easily one of his favorites. The only thing I remember Pop saying is that the shovel really hurt. Foley replied, "I loved working with your dad. I geared up for every match with Vader like it was Ali vs. Frazier. In my opinion, Vader's absence is the most glaring and obvious omission from the Hall of Fame." As Foley fanatics know, Mick lost a part of his ear to Vader during a house show in Germany, a spot that helped solidify Foley's reputation as one of the toughest men in wrestling. Sadly, Vader passed away in 2018 at the age of 63, so any induction would be posthumous. Do you think Vader should go into the WWE Hall of Fame? Let us know in the comments down below. Next up, what Arn Anderson really thinks of Triple H. Arn Anderson is always sharing his memories of working in the WWE, so fans weren't surprised to hear him discuss Triple H during a recent episode of Anderson's podcast, The Arn Show. Double A shared his opinion of the game, saying, "He's following the lead of his father-in-law. He's putting forward the policies that Vince has laid out. I think he speaks well. I think he has a good grasp on the business. I think he's kind of a throwback as far as his work back to an 80s style worker. He could have fit in the 80s as far as the way he works. He's not a big high spot guy. I dealt with him more on the mechanics of the matches and things like that. Sometimes he would ask my opinion on stuff." Arn also discussed who he sees as eventually running the WWE. "I think he, that being Helmsley, has always been, and maybe it was the plan of the company for him to one day take over the leadership of the company. Who knows? You have Shane and Steph who would probably fall in line if you really broke it down in terms of who is ahead of him, I think. They are Vince's kids, but who knows? Steph has her job as far as branding and Shane does his thing. I don't know how it's lined up, and you will never know until the issue arises." Hunter and Stephanie's name usually comes up when talk turns to who Vince will appoint to run the WWE if he should ever call it quits. Knowing Vince McMahon's mercurial mind, his choice could change on a day-to-day basis. Next up, the Hell in a Cell main event has been leaked. Fans wondering what the main event for Hell in a Cell will be intrigued by a recent tweet by the reliable WrestleVotes. He mentioned, "Sasha Banks vs Bayley inside Hell in a Cell is the planned main event as of now for the 25th October pay-per-view. Now, the WWE has been building this feud up for months, but is it wise to begin the feud in a match that normally is reserved for ending feuds?" Some fans believe Bayley will injure Banks during the match, knocking her out of action for a few months to resume the feud in 2021 when it's more likely there are paying fans. And finally, is Matt Cardona finished with AEW? Matt Cardona, aka longtime WWE superstar Zack Ryder, is friends with AEW Executive Vice President Cody Rhodes, so fans weren't surprised when Cardona showed up to wrestle in AEW. Still, when Cardona said he was only signed for a few dates, many AEW fans figured he'd signed a long-term deal with the company, but apparently that's not the case, as Cardona's last contractual obligation was for All Out and hasn't been on AEW television since. Cardona talked about this on Pro Wrestling Junkies, and he said he's open to returning, but he'll have to wait. AEW is flush with talent right now, and until it gets another TV slot, it's better off holding on any signing of wrestlers unless a main event name is available. But there you have it guys, the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know. Be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Facebook for exclusive lists, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.